Let me have a quick checkaroni. Normally it tells me.
Oh, it's come up with the thing on the side. Hang on. Can I get rid of that?
I've just got a live notification from you, so we are live. Hello, members of the public.
Hello, public members. Hello, 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 and welcome to the latest edition of FailcastF1. There we go. Back to full screen. Apologies for that. My name is Mr. Falkenberg, and alongside me, although I might have to choose a different person for 2020, we have the Taco Extraordinaire and F1 Mini Champ Collector these days. Definitely Zero. How you doing?
Hello, matey. Hello. I'm good. I've had a Happy New Year to you too, and to everyone else. It's been a nice month off. We've had quite a long break, but I have eaten all of the food, all of it. All of it. We're going to have to get Bob Geldof out of retirement, put him back on stage. He's going to have to... I've been dining out on I Don't Like Mondays for 30 years. Today's beverage is Dr. Pepper. What is the worst that could happen? Yeah, how was your New Year, mate?
To decide whether I'm just going to say, it took me years to know whether or not I like Dr. Pepper, but then after buying it for 10 years, going, do I like it? I decided I must have done because I've force-fed myself so much. Mine was great, thank you. Lots of good Crimbo food and drink. Treated myself to a PlayStation VR, which I'm slowly getting up to speed with, as well as my wheel, which I've really done nothing with, because it's just been mega busy throughout January. How about yourself?
It's remarkable how similar our situations are, because I too got a PSVR that I'm going to be streaming with at some point in the near future. I've been playing Wipeout without vomiting, which is really good. Like, I get motion sick on like a taxi ride across town. It doesn't take much at all in a real car. If I'm not driving, I get motion sick really quickly. But apparently in VR I'm immune, which is fine, and it stopped me from selling my wheel. Because I was all ready to sell my wheel because I'm crap. I can't seem to be fast with it, and I really was hoping you tried out your wheel because I wanted to hear if this was like a Ben problem or if this was a driving with a pad for years problem.
I think it's a driving with the pad for years problem, because when I do have a very funny enough, I always wear out this story. Jack Nichols sent it to me as a pity favour when he upgraded his wheel. He sent me his old one and was like, Simon, you can barely qualify for a race with a gamepad. Try a wheel. But I was like another 6 seconds off the pace with that, and I was like, come on. So I just stopped, and I just assumed that it was because it was a CAC wheel and I hadn't given it the time. So no, I think it's a genuine transition, especially when you're thinking of using your hoofs for pedals instead of your trigger fingers. And we've got used to analog sticks just doing like little tiny motions here and there rather than the actual thing. And I remember you saying on a previous episode it was about remembering to return the wheel back to centre, and I had exactly the same problem when I first tried a wheel.
Because what tends to happen is either I have to brake super hard and crawl around the apex so slowly that I end up 17 seconds off the pace, or I'm either over or understeering, depending on how I've set my wheel up. Because you're right, that is the problem. I'm very slow returning the wheel to centre because I've gotten lazy and I don't want to put that much energy into driving. I'm doing it for fun. I'm sitting down. If I wanted to embarrass myself and get all sweaty during my free time, I'd have joined a gym.
Well, I feel moist all of a sudden. Apparently it's going to rain halfway through the race.
Of course it is.
I'm shocking at this circuit as well. So this is your time to creep back up on the championship.
Yeah, or else I'm going to get replaced at this rate.
How very Gasly of you.
Yeah, I've gone full Gasly this season. I don't know what's happened to me. Because you have got 4 times the points of me, and you're currently our championship leader.
I won't be by the end of this event. I am shocking around this circuit. I just cannot... Like, I can do it for about a lap and a half, and then I'm just like, no, I don't want to do these apexes, and then I just can't get back to normal, and I feel like I just can't understand the rhythm of this circuit for love nor money.
Well, it doesn't really have one, does it? It's kind of if I was like a puritanical Christian, I would say it's heresy. It's
begone from back to whence you came.
Yeah, it's one of those. It really is. It just because like there's no really strongly defining visual characteristics that help you monitor where the apexes are, figure out your position on the circuit. You get used to it the more you drive it, of course, but also like because of the way it's painted, everything blends into one.
Yeah.
So particularly in the end of Sector 1 corner complex, which I'm going through at this very moment, it can be kind of difficult to... I mean, also the logical line that you would take to build up speed would have you driving wildly off the circuit. So
yes.
It just seems bad. I think it's quite fun to watch on TV. I think like visually, the way it's designed looks good from above. But to drive, it's fucking irritating.
To me, it's like loads and loads of test corners that have just been strung together to test out how a car can deal with. So I could see it being really, really interesting from like a technical perspective to understand how a car can go through its paces around a variety of different types of corners. Not quite so sure if it lends itself well to a racing venue as a whole.
No, that's something that I think you see quite a lot, right? When there are circuits that we still use today for testing that just really do not lend themselves well at all to Grand Prix racing. Oh, hello.
That is true, especially now that the Hockenheim is off the calendar, and I was laughing actually at Formula One putting up the top races of the decade and the amount of them that have come from Germany, and that's the one circuit that we've bumped off. I was like, oh, well done. And that was all the comment section was about, was basically, well done, F1.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know why we struggle so much to make a German Grand Prix viable these days. I mean, they don't have as many top flight drivers as they did. Now we've lost Nico Hülkenberg, and Pascal Wehrlein's career nosedived into a cliffside. But you know, you've still got Vettel. He's not at the top of his game, but you've still got him. Mercedes are, frankly, dominant. The racing there is always really good. As far as I can tell, Germans like Formula One, and honestly, seeing it live here is the best way to do it, because you see the cars more often than you do during TV coverage, because it's so full of adverts. I just don't understand why some of the... I mean, because Monza also occasionally has trouble, right? When their renewal comes up, or Silverstone, when their renewal comes up, it's always like a big talking point, like, oh, are we gonna... Is this going to be the last British Grand Prix, or is it going to be the last one at Silverstone at least?
Yeah.
But by the way, I still strongly favour Silverstone for the British Grand Prix.
Oh yes,
I think it's a great circuit. I love it, and I just don't think Brands Hatch has. I love Brands as well, but you know, for me, that would serve as a second venue, like a European Grand Prix.
It's funny actually, because I was watching the 1993 European Grand Prix, which was at Donington, and I obviously I was a wee child back then, so I didn't really bother with any of the F1 politics, and it was the Eurosport coverage of like the first and second free practice sessions, and because it was just pure rain all the way through, like hardly anyone's out on track, so it's just John Watson and Allard Kauf talking bollocks for ages. And they're talking actually about how the drivers really, really were like, why are we here on this shit circuit? This isn't an F1 graded circuit. It's not going to be suitable for the cars. It's not going to be a challenge for the drivers at all. And yet, like by Saturday, by the time they got to like the practice then, all the drivers were like, oh, actually, we've quite enjoyed this circuit and we've enjoyed the flow of it, and we're sorry, everyone. I just find that really, really interesting that sometimes other countries or whatever, if they want to start swapping around venues and stuff, maybe looking outside of I've really buggered this up into the pits. Looking outside of their usual remits would be quite an interesting thing to do, because Germany has got so many circuits that they could pick from. If Hockenheim is now so disdained because it's been neutered from the old Hockenheim, maybe, and same with Nürburgring as well, that's still got like a bitter taste for some people who are the purists who like to make themselves known. Some of the other circuits that they've got would be of interest.
There are a lot of great circuits here. There really are, but I'm definitely not among the purists. I mean, for me, the difference between the Nürburgring as was and the Nürburgring today is that the one today doesn't really kill as many people, and I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah. Same.
I mean, the Nürburgring, that's really what it was famous for, right? That's why it got its reputation as a formidable circuit, because people drove it and then they tended to die. I don't think that's necessarily a selling point today.
Completely agree. But it's funny, though, because when I do the voiceovers for the circuits of the past YouTube channel, and I've just submitted one today actually, which is going to be for the next video, top 10 longest F1 circuits. And Nürburgring's on there, Hockenheim's on there, Spa's on there, and the narrative that I have to read is basically, how dare Hockenheim be neutered, and it's an absolute travesty and it's a disgusting mess of its former self. And I just think, look at the racing that circuit provides. I know it's been neutered and it's a different circuit and a different character, but that track provides fantastic racing year in, year out, and actually it's probably one of Herman Tilke's successes, dare I say.
And he needs all the help he can get, counting those.
That's true. Why is myself and Charles Leclerc the slowest two?
I don't know, because you also set the fastest time of anybody in Sector 2. I was watching you go round, and you got a purple Sector 2. So I don't get it.
Never mind.
It is a mystery to me. But I'm enjoying our circuit talk, since there's not a lot of news going on. We do have some news to cover later in the episode, of course, but I'm enjoying this circuit talk. Because I've seen people sort of advocating for some quite sort of left field circuits actually to join the F1 calendar. When they're talking about the Dutch Grand Prix, which is happening at a different circuit, but people were saying, don't go to the Netherlands, go to the Czech Republic and use Brno.
Oh yeah,
which is famous mostly for superbikes.
Yes, interesting circuit though.
Yeah, it is. I'm not sure it would necessarily lend itself well to Formula One, but it was an interesting name to come out of the hat.
I might be talking utter bollocks, but in fact, no, I am, because my brain's just corrected myself. I was about to say, isn't W Series going to Brno this year? But they're not. Don't mind me.
I tell you what, I don't blame you, because it sounds like something that could be true.
Because they follow the DTM package, which was why I was like, oh, are they off there? And then it was me mixing it with Zolder.
Because,
I love the Zolder circuit.
Did you know Neil Armstrong's grandparents were Belgian? So that technically makes him the first Belgian on the moon.
Oh, wow.
That's actually also a lie, but it's one of those things that sounds like it could be true, and that's why I forgive you for saying W Series was going to Brno. It's totally feasible.
Oh. Have you seen, actually, talking of W Series, I appreciate that this isn't massive F1 talk, but they've replaced the female commentator with Alex Jakes in a move that I thought was going to be controversial, yet I haven't seen anyone really kicking up about it, probably because that lead female commentator was basically the only weak link in what was a fantastic debut series season for that series.
It was actually, and to be honest, I'm pretty active on the old Twitter. I never learn. I should just leave it really. But in general, I follow a lot of sort of aspiring motorsport journalists. A lot of them young women. People like Hayley Stanway. They're not famous yet, but I'm pretty sure they will be one day.
Not related to a Richie Stanaway, is it? Oh, Stanaway, not Stanway, sorry.
Yes, yeah. And the sense I got was that people generally supported the removal of that commentator because it's a quality thing, and as long as it's about promoting female talent in motorsport, that's all people really cared about, that and the quality of the racing. And if adding a new commentator improved the package, regardless of what's in their trousers, then I think that's a no-brainer.
Completely agree.
I'm actually really looking forward to season 2. I saw season 1 intermittently, and I was quite impressed by it. I'm interested to see. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say they've uploaded all of the races now to their YouTube channel. So if there was anything that you missed, have a look. Particularly the reverse grid race, because that was an interesting experiment, which I kind of feel exceptionally conflicted on.
Yeah, I'm on principle against reverse grids generally in any formula that has a qualifying. But I was going to say I'm actually really keen to see what happens with Jamie Chadwick now. Because she's in the Williams program, but I don't know if she has enough money behind her. And I don't know what her pace is relative to the other guys in the Williams camp. So I'm interested to see what happens when she's put out in practice and in the test sessions to see where she slots in. But what I don't want is... I don't want them to do what they did with Susie Wolff. To put a woman there for the sake of having a woman there. And you and I railed about this at the time, right? They put Susie Wolff in there, knowing full well she wasn't fast enough to get into Formula 1, when there was women like Simona Di Silvestro, who, for me, is someone I'm still gutted that didn't get a shot in Formula 1. Sauber gave her a few test runs, and then she went off to IndyCar. And, for me, she was the most credible woman driver to come towards Formula 1. And Jamie Chadwick's kind of taken over that role for me. She impressed me in W Series, and I just hope that Williams give her a fair crack of the whip, because what we all want is the best racing possible, and that means the best racers. And it means that sometimes you just want the team to look at everyone on merit and not just go after the money, which is what they've done with Roy Nissany and Nicholas Latifi.
Yes.
I'm not saying Latifi can't drive an F1 car, but I mean, particularly with Roy Nissany, if I had to choose between putting Nissany in the car or Jamie Chadwick, it'd be Chadwick hands down.
Absolutely.
And so I'm just hoping that Nissany's money doesn't talk more than Jamie Chadwick's talent.
Yeah, and I feel like Nissany is very much a kind of placeholder to allow other things to happen, because the Nissany family clearly have more money than sense. Roy is much better than his father. I'll give him that. But in a season of F2 in 2018, because he wasn't racing 2019, he was last by a way and was Sean Galealized, because at least Galeo gets a lot of shit with his KFC, but actually he is
finger licking good.
He's finger licking good because he's finger licking midfield, whereas and he still gets all the crap everywhere. And to be fair, he's matching Mick Schumacher quite a few times, and if Mick is going to end up being dragged into Formula 1, then grab me some chicken at the same time. Do you know what I mean? It's whereas Roy Nissany was not. And it would be the same as if they stuck Tatiana Calderon in the car, because she was 3 seconds off the pace as well. So let's not kind of think, oh, that didn't work. Sorry, Robert.
I mean, I'm sure it's going to happen. I mean, Ferrari announced today or yesterday that they were setting aside one of their driver development program slots for a female driver. I trust them a bit more than Williams to pick the right woman. Although Williams definitely made the right choice in at least their first instance. Second instance, because Susie Wolff.
Yeah.
So I'm keen to see who gets that, because we don't want another Tatiana Calderon. That's the be-all and end-all of it, really.
I'll give Susie Wolff her due. When they did give her the practice outing in Silverstone, she was by no means disgraceful at all. And actually, I think she put in a really, really good account of herself. My worry with where they like will put aside Ferrari putting aside a specific position for a female driver. I don't know where they're going to steal the female driver from, because Alice Powell, who to me was the good go racer in W Series, has already been in F3. She's older, and so I don't think she would be a realistic opportunity. The Finnish lady, Kymäläinen, is very good, but needs to go and win it. The only person who I can kind of think outside of that, because Marta Garcia is not racing W Series this season, so I don't know where she's off to, would be Hideki Noda's daughter, who everyone is raving about in Japan.
Yeah, I was going to drop that name until you beat me to it.
Oh, sorry. Which leads us potentially to a tentative LaRousse switch over to, if you want to talk about mini champs afterwards.
Oh, bring back LaRousse.
Oh, those cars, beautiful. Oh, what's happened there? Oh, it's the end of this. I thought my TV had conked out.
Good to see that after doing this for literally a decade. You didn't make it out of Q1. What happened there?
Oh, fuck. I was 12th before. Oh, well. I told you I was shit at this circuit. This is your chance to call me back in the championship.
Well, I'm going to have to get points now because you've just let the side down. Albon's
out. I tell you what, the AI has been hilarious in our season with who gets through and who doesn't.
It has, to be fair. It has.
Well done, Russell.
Yeah, making it through. I tell you what, while we're on Williams, I'm actually a little bit excited about their season next year.
Ooh, do tell.
I don't know why. I know it's kind of my job on this podcast to explain why I think what I think and to stimulate discussion. But I can't figure out exactly why. I just sort of get the feeling that they're going to turn a corner. And maybe it's the continuity of having a driver of the calibre of George Russell. The fact the team seems to be bringing in money, which is something it desperately needed the last few seasons. I know they've lost Rexona, but they've brought in a bunch of sponsors after signing Nicholas Latifi, including like Royal Bank of Canada. And I don't know, I have faith in Georgie Boy. I think that's what it is. I have faith in Georgie Boy. And there'll be a two-car team this year, which I think won't hurt.
Agree. Latifi will be much more of a match than Robert Kubica was, at least in terms of qualifying / race distance performance. And I think what will be really interesting is I want to know when they're going to be stopping looking at 2020 and move towards 2021, because for this season I think it was good to see them close the gap gradually over 2019, which showed that they could kind of develop themselves out of a bad car to an extent. And I'd just like to see them reattach themselves back onto the rest of the field, because everyone else was so close. It was like a harem going on in the midfield.
It was a dream season. If you take the outliers at the front and back, it was a dream season. I think it started weakly, but there were some really great rounds in the mid to late season that I could watch again and again. Given the fact it's the last year before formula change, it's hard to say how much they will really invest. I don't know. I've just been having a positive feeling about them. And maybe it's because I'm secretly convinced that Haas will unveil a new car, declare they figured out all their problems, and then 5 rounds in we'll switch back to their Melbourne 2019 spec.
We're bringing out the 2018 car for Grosjean.
Yeah, and it'll be faster.
Well, Haas passed their FIA crash test today, so at least we know.
At least they've passed one test.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, when you've still got Grosjean behind the wheel, that's the one test you really want to pass.
It was the only one they probably had loads of practice in.
Yeah, they've got loads of experience in it, so you should know.
Ooh, I was worried for you then.
Yeah, me too. Because apparently that's a guy who only held onto his seat based on one performance. Did you see this while we were off the air?
No.
So Alfa Romeo confirmed that it was his drive at Monza that saved his career.
Oh, wow.
And that based on the rest of the season, he wouldn't have kept that seat. That's alarming to me for two reasons. One, his drive at Monza was good, but it wasn't something that I'll be remembering for years. And number two, I think it's always worrying when any team makes a decision based on one race.
Mm-hmm.
That should never ever be happening. He did close up to Raikkonen over the course of the season, so he did move forward. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve a second season. I'm just not sure that the reason he doesn't deserve to be kicked out is one that Alpha truly appreciates.
That's weird. I hadn't read that at all, so that was news to me. It's interesting because he was clearly a match to Kimi in quali, but then we know that Kimi in quali trim is not what he once was, I guess, because he was normally trounced by Vettel in quali quite often when they were side by side in Ferrari. But it was the race pace where he'd always fade towards over the course of a race, and that was where the true grit of Kimi kind of came out and made me appreciate him more. And over the course of the season, the two kind of pulled together because all the way through Brazil and got a lovely double points finish. That was just as good.
Yeah.
So,
but
yeah,
it wasn't.
weird.
It wasn't what the team mentioned, which was odd. And also, we should point out that it's not right to call them Alpha anymore. It's Alfa Romeo Racing Orlen. Thanks to them taking Robert Kubica's Polish money. I'm surprised it came with a title sponsorship deal for a testing seat. That was a unforeseen development. But there we go. That's the world we live in now.
Money that is then.
Well, I mean,
that must be a shit ton.
I would hope it's quite a bit of money because, you know, you and I both love Sauber and want to see them succeed. And the Alfa Romeo deal's by no means guaranteed to get renewed, given that Alfa Romeo is sort of hemorrhaging cash and has forgotten how to build a car. So I'm I don't know. Those two teams, like Williams and Alfa, I'm wondering if they're heading in different trajectories at the moment.
Interesting. I also wonder then if that's a title sponsor, if if Giovinazzi is not up for the goods, if there is some kind of clause in there that lets Kubica back in a race seat afterwards, potentially. Who knows?
Polish Grand Prix 2021.
That's a good point, actually. Does Poland have a well-known racetrack? I don't know if they do.
Not a well-known one, I don't think, but they have plenty, I'm sure. I don't know if they're F1 grade. It was more sort of an offhanded comment, but I mean, I could see it because obviously Orlen want to push him, and he still remains. I don't want to use the term inexplicably popular, but then again, I think I do want to use that word because, you know, I mean, I'm going to risk the ire here of Polish F1 fans again, but the denial from them about the reality of his performance seemed nuts. And when he was talking at the end of the season about, oh yeah, you know, maybe I'll stay in Formula One, I really thought he was off to DTM. And then this Alpha deal kind of came out of nowhere. And I don't know who benefits from it, really. I mean, I know Alpha get to take the money, but, I mean, like, realistically, who benefits? Because I don't know what his worth as a test driver is now, if it's still, you know, an opinion that's not surpassed by someone with a lot more relevant recent experience, or someone who's actually going to end up driving the car in the future. You know, because this is what we were saying about McLaren years ago.
And what could he bring that would not be because of all of his experiences of old cars that don't transcribe over to what is currently out there, I don't see what he brings that maybe another well-funded junior driver, 20 years his junior, would be able to bring. Very strange, very strange.
And I mean, particularly in the sense of the dynamic between Orlan and Kubica, why would they fund a non-racy F1 program to that extent when he could race perfectly competently and probably competitively somewhere else? I mean, maybe it's just the brand value of F1. Maybe it's that there was no incentive to invest in Formula E for a fuel company. But still, something about it is weird. And maybe it's just, his vast popularity makes it make sense somehow. But I don't know, it feels kind of short-sighted and a bit of a waste of money. I mean, there's still the conspiracy theory that Williams were deliberately messing with Kubica's car and not giving him equal treatment and so on. I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't have given him equal treatment. I have no trouble saying that. Because if you're going to get a result out of one of those cars, it's probably going to be George Russell. And I know I'm saying that in a world where Kubica got a point and Russell didn't, but I stand by it. I mean, that should have been Russell's point, really. It was just, a misfortune in terms of strategy that prevented that from happening. So I kind of, not to diminish too much the feel-good story that it undoubtedly was, it kind of feels like it wasn't really Kubica's point.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It was it's a strange one. And
also, I had higher hopes for Alfa Romeo. I thought better of them than this.
And it kind of also shoves for me, like, if Ferrari is supposed to have a Ferrari driver academy, why are they shoring up a test position with a fuddy-duddy?
Well, not only that, but Sauber have their own junior program.
Yeah, with Giroux. So if you've got, like, Callum Ilott, for example, would be someone who you'd be looking at. I know Louis Delatraz has gone back to Giroux for 2020, which kind of feels a bit weird because he's a Haas development driver, but now with Giroux powered by Sauber.
He's Swiss though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a fairy tale waiting to happen.
Swiss cheese. Oh yes, please. So, there's a couple of ones that are in there as well. Like slightly lower down the formula that I can think of that kind of fit the bill, and it just feels awkward. Maybe the money grab is really because Alfa Romeo just don't have anything to go for, and Orlean are just there for the brand, and they can really measure the success of it. Because if all Polish people want to go for Kubica, maybe they're going to go and follow that brand wherever they can, because blind Kubica wins all. Who knows?
Well, I mean, they have one advantage over Williams insofar as, because he's not in a race seat and he can't then fail on a very public stage, Alfa are going to escape the negative fan reaction that Williams unavoidably encountered.
That's true. So long as both Kimi and Giovinazzi perform, I think if Giovinazzi is wonky, then they'll be like, get Robert in the car, how dare you're not giving him his chance. Because I think it's Harry Anto part 2 waiting to happen. Driver of the day, Robert Kubica. What? He wasn't even in the Grand Prix. Hello? So yeah, interesting. But it's I've not seen a driver be able to command such craziness outside of like their home Grand Prix. So we know Sergio Perez, everyone goes nuts in Mexico. And then you've got the Max Verstappen obviously going around with his own contingent. I can't remember someone being able to command like a massive legion of fans everywhere who is not a front driver for ages.
Not in the social media age, actually.
No.
Because, not even Hamilton's fans are that zealous That's a good word. Glad I got that in. Makes me sound smart. It's really odd. Like, you know, Verstappen's fans and Hamilton's fans, they're nowhere near as zealous as Robert Kubica's. And Kubica's fans will make the most ludicrous claims based on nothing. And you're right, it's got a touch of Rio Haryanto about it, because I remember you and I, back in the 2014 season of the podcast, laughing at the Indonesian YouTube videos that claimed Haryanto won the race with selective editing. Do you remember those? Like, it'd show him crossing the line, it'd be like, pole position. I did enjoy that.
You know that was probably his mother. Because otherwise, if you're not winning, you're coming back to work the family business. No, Mummy, no!
Anto, it has happened to. Guess who else?
Who else? Oh, I don't know.
So, there was a very promising young F1 driver who I actually thought did fairly well in his time in Formula 1. Certainly didn't necessarily deserve not to be given a shot further up the field, who now works at a trucking company for his parents.
Oh, I'm so intrigued.
Is
it relatively recent?
Yeah, relatively recent. And I guarantee you're probably not thinking of the correct person, because it shocked the hell out of me.
Charles Peak?
Oh my god, you got it in one! How on earth did you get that?
No!
Yeah.
No. I was going back 3
hate
years.
you.
And I was like, no, they're all still working, but I can't, because I keep getting confused that Arthur Peak is in Formula 2 or Formula 3, whatever it is, and I thought that they were related and they're not. I didn't know that at all. How funny.
Yeah, Charles Peak just given up on racing completely. It's completely mad. And you know, he do a stint in Formula E briefly as well, and he did quite well.
I don't know if he went to Formula E. I can't remember. Maybe he done a couple of races.
Yeah, I don't think he did a full season. I think maybe it was a funding issue. Maybe he just ran out of money. But it's really sad to see someone who actually I thought was quite capable just sort of waft off into the world of logistics. But you know, like, my favourite thing Frank Williams ever said was that the greatest F1 champion hasn't been discovered. He could very well be driving people hither and thither in a tuk-tuk, or he could be selling apples on a street stall. Not everyone has the ability financially to get to F1 and be given a chance in a racing seat. And I'm not saying Charles Peak would necessarily have been championship material, but I saw him as, like, credible.
Well, yeah, because he was the first Glock teammate to not be completely out of F1 the next year, in the Virgin cars, wasn't he? So because he then moved to go alongside Guido Bantergaard, the Caterham Kings, for 2013, and then vamoosed from there. What is George Russell doing in Q3? For the love of penis.
Leave him alone, he's having fun.
No, I know, I love Georgie Podge, but
it's, I don't know, but I bet there's very few people who are going to have a midlife crisis as hard as him.
No, yeah, going around touring the world, now trucking it.
Doing admin at a trucking firm, surrounded by pictures of you as a Formula 1 driver.
I wonder if he has to give talks to the troops before he then gets in and be like, I was famous too once.
And the poor guy. And actually, I discovered this because I was doing a bit of research on, like, recent F1 dropouts.
Yeah.
And the ratio is something like 20 to 30% of them just, like, they fail in Formula 1 and then they're just out of motorsport because they've already reached the top and they've proven that they can't hold on to a seat. So sponsors sort of just bail out and say, well, you've had your shot and you blew it, that's it, it's over for you. And you can't really go anywhere else.
Which is interesting because once upon a time, you'd then be able to bail out to endurance racing and GT racing and kind of try and carve yourself out there. But you're right. There's a bit of a weird shift where I can go and look at like Le Mans and GT racing, and I can wheel out like 90s and early 2000s race car drivers from Formula One that are still going in that sport and have got their drives quite covered for like until their pension age. But these guys have to then go back into the real world afterwards. There's no kind of taper off.
Yeah, I mean, like the requirement. It used to be a very easy transition to go from failed F1 driver to like endurance racing or Formula E or whatever. Formula E's already got to the point where it's very credible, and it's no longer a parachute formula anymore. I don't think. Like,
agreed.
And if anything, it's proven the worth of Jean-Eric Vergne and Lucas Di Grassi. Who actually is one of my favourite people in motorsport at the moment. The guy talks so much sense, and he has such a vision and a grip and an understanding of every level of it. Like, he continually impresses me. But anyway, back on the topic. It's no longer the case that it's a shoe-in that you get there. And it's no longer the case that your sponsors will necessarily hold on with you. Because you're right, I mean, like Jan Magnussen's still kicking around in GT racing.
Yeah.
And the number of people who sort of flop in Formula One, sometimes through no fault of their own, that then just have to go back to working for their parents. You know, it surprised me. And because, you always sort of think that they're probably kicking around somewhere, like racing in Japan or, somewhere in a paid race seat. But no.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a good sign. Maybe it shows that motorsport is so abundant with talent that we can discard perfectly serviceable drivers. I mean, like another one, Jaime Alguersuari. It's now DJ.
Yeah. Yes, because he comes out and does sets. I'd like to do a back-to-back set of him and Sakon Yamamoto, please.
Yes.
Thank you very much. My DJ shenanigans. Still by far my favourite afterlife work career of any F1 driver, and you'll know exactly what I'm going to talk about before I even.
But do it anyway, please.
The Don Boss Dildo King.
Yes. Well, someone's got to sell dildos. Might as well be failed Formula One driver Robert Dornbos.
Exactly. Always keeping it in the rear. There's a. Talking. Oh, no, that's tentative.
Go on.
Crossover, but it kind of makes vague sense. So before Christmas, Duke Video, who do all of the season reviews for Formula One and stuff like that, they also do all the season reviews for British touring cars, and they were doing a massive discount for their members on the 1990s season reviews of BTCC. So I picked up the box set of 94 through to 99.
Oh, those were the golden years.
Having a wonderful time. And Mannerhauser was just saying in the chat, actually, that the same applies to F2 to a lesser degree, and I'll agree with that, and I'll come back to that in a sec. But the reason why it's popped into my head is that in 1994, Murray Walker's... It's basically Murray Walker and Steve Ryder sharing commentary duties. It's glorious. So Steve Ryder does all the pre-race stuff, and then Murray Walker comes in. They take his live commentary snippets, and then Steve Ryder, when the race gets boring, Steve Ryder comes in and talks some stuff, and then kind of moves it on. And one of the cars, and I think it's Jan Lammers, spinning around in a Ford Escort, not a Ford Escort, but it's like a Volvo Estate. That's it. And the
T50.
So he's spinning around, but his sponsorship one is a book company, and Murray Walker goes, "Well, I wonder if they wrote a book about that, about how to recover after being biffed up the rear." And I thought, Murray, no, that's not what you're supposed to be saying.
Oh, Murray.
And they've left it, how Murray has certain persuasions that basically British people were far better than any other country, and if he was foreign, then he would go out of his way to tell you about how foreign they are.
Yes.
There's one Italian. So it's this in that season, Gabriele Tarquini dominates the season and wins. And he seems to get a nice pass, but there's a new Italian, not Giovanardi, but someone like that. And he keeps on going, this foreign Italian driver coming from Italian Formula 3000, he's a sensation, Italian. And then, like, an English person hits him and he goes, oh, welcome to our country. And I'm like, you can't have this on a DVD today. It's just... those kind of things.
To be honest, like, I absolutely adore Murray Walker, but sometimes, like, I watch the Retro F1 and you do cringe. His fondness for referring to Toru Takagi as the little Japanese.
Yeah.
Tiger
Takagi.
That still cracks me up a bit. And then my absolute favourite was I was watching a quali session from 1993 with Alan Prost in the Williams.
Oh yeah.
And he just rolls out a stellar lap there from the frog. And it's like, no, you can't do that. Murray, no. But, you know, like,
amazing.
It was a different time.
Yep.
It was a simpler time. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's funny, actually. Like, now I'm old enough to have times in my lifetime that were like that. Because I always remember when, you know, I was lucky. My grandparents were never like stereotypical grandparents, but it was my dad that would say things that would make me cringe. Still does occasionally, but you know, like when you're like a teenager and you hear like outdated views, and you just think, how could anyone have ever have thought that? Like, you just have no sympathy for it at all. But now I look back at like Murray Walker or like the 90s in general, and you kind of get it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you don't defend it. You say, you know, times have moved on, and rightfully so, but it's not as shocking and abhorrent to you as perhaps it is to younger ears, because you just grew up with it. It was just the way people spoke. Because, I mean, you know, I was whinging last season about people getting offended at Friends, but do you know what? Enough time's passed now, actually, that I watch the occasional episode of Friends and go, all right, I can kind of see what they're saying here, actually, because, I mean, also that show's about psychopaths, if you really pay attention to the subtext. But yeah, like some opinions in there definitely haven't aged very well at all. But, you know, there's a lot of sort of retro commentators, you know, but you never got this kind of stuff from John Watson.
No, although he's proper grumpy. I tell you what, really did surprise me though. Ooh, yellow flag in sector 1. Who's gone off? Someone's not there anymore.
Not guilty, Your Honour.
Oh, I must be all back on again. It was so yeah. Again, I was watching. It's on the Variety Network. Is the YouTube channel. Although he's worried because he's been summoned to the BBC because he's been uploading loads and loads of BBC footage, and he's had to go and meet with them. I think he's trying to defend the fact that he's putting them because he puts them up as premieres, and he's trying to show that actually there's a thing for replaying old footage again that they're not gaining any money out of. So why don't they invest in the Variety Network as a side project, and you can re-upload old like F1 stuff and bits and bobs. Anyway,
I just want to not to cut you off, but I totally agree with him on that. Like, there's demand for it, they're not using it.
Yeah. Let him pay a little fee or license or something, and then monetize it, and then he can have some dosh himself and archive it all. Because I didn't realise he actually says the guy that runs that channel in his posts on YouTube, he talks about when he used to work at ITV, which is why he's able to get hold of like the pre-race footage where before they go live of like
Big Jim
Rosenthal. Yeah, and Tony Jardine just talking bollocks at each other for ages, and then Mark Blundell coming in and being like, "What's up? Maybe in my boobs."
Every time I see Tony Jardine on those things, by the way, there's a voice in my head that goes, "Oh my god, what a nerd!"
I thought he was really funny at the time. He was like, the pre-gestation of Ted Kravitz, but like before Ted Kravitz.
It's like
was
Pokemon. He evolves into Ted Kravitz. I'm enjoying that way more than I should. Do you know, almost none of our audience is going to get why that's so funny, but it is.
I choose you, Tony. Oh dear. And he's got that slight little mini lisp as well. Do you remember on the first year of ITV, we're going right off topic now, when they used to have Simon Thingamy-Bob on there as well, and he was just too horrible, so they bumped him off after the first year.
Yeah, it was 97 was their first year, right, with the contract. Because I remember, like, all the pre-season build-up, it was all about Damon Hill, and you're right, there was Jardine and the other prick, and
Simon Mayo, was it? No, not Simon.
No, he's the crap radio DJ. And it wasn't Simon Lazenby either. See, he's so forgettable, and he's not a real Simon like you.
Exactly. Well done on poll, by the way.
Thank you. He's the anti-Simon.
Boo. The Antichrist. Anyway, that was nothing about what I wanted to talk about. What was I meant to be talking about?
It's my fault.
So that Variety Network was uploading some stuff from 1993, 1992 and 1995, and it's when Eurosport goes on to breaks, he was switching over to BBC. And in 1993, they're talking about Ukyo Katayama, and on Eurosport, they're talking about how well he's doing and what a surprising revelation he was in the wet in 1993 in his Tyrrell. They go to an ad break, you flick over to qualifying, and it's James Hunt saying about, and because they switch over, Katayama's in the gravel, surprise, and James Hunt just goes, Ukyo seems to be doing this all the time recently. I don't think he really deserves his place in there, blah, 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 blah. And then Murray goes, yes, diminutive Japanese man. And then they just continue on, and then it flicks back. And I was like, but what it made me think of is we had no other media that was going on at that time. So how interesting is it that...
to juxtapose a paid network against a public one, actually.
Yeah, but also how we didn't have alternative views. So if you didn't have... where you'd only have access to the BBC, that could have been the only view you'd ever have had of that driver, because you never got to see them anywhere else. So you don't get the full 360 view and alternative opinions back then. So your opinion of what Katayama could have done was forever shaped by whatever they said.
To be honest, Murray was at his worst for this stuff when he was partnered with James Hunt. And quite often, because Hunt as well sounds so unbearably posh, because he was.
Yes.
And he thinks he's James Bond because, well, he is James Bond, really. But that you always expect, because Murray always backs him up as well. Murray seemed a little bit starstruck by him, I felt. But he'd say something that's a harsh but subjective opinion that's not especially bigoted or anything. He'll just go, I don't think Katayama deserves his seat. And then Murray will chip in and go, yes, James, you're right, I think he eats dogs. And it's like, where did that come from, Murray? Where did it come from? I interviewed him only yesterday, and he said, Murray, you honour my family. He's just... particularly with the Japanese and the French. Maybe it's because, he was around in the Second World War. So maybe it's, particularly on the Japanese front, maybe he's got like a little bit of an axe to grind.
Possibly.
But, I still think he retired too early. I think there was a few more good years of Murray left.
Yeah, well, that kind of proved when they bought him back for some of the... do you remember when they done not the historic F1 series, but it was where they put all of the old heroes back out, a Legend series, wasn't it, or something like that?
Yeah.
And basically Nigel Mansell won everything because he was about the only one that wasn't on a pacemaker.
That's correct, yeah, he dominated. Hello, Beetlejuice, good to see you, mate. I hope you're keeping well.
Oh, hey, BJ.
We're just discussing retro F1 coverage because there's not much actual F1 news at the moment. I mean, don't get me wrong. The thing is, as well, what I find is I actually quite like the Eurosport coverage from back then, and I will often watch a race or a qualifying session from one and then from the other, just to get the insights from both sides. Because, I mean, John Watson, he's a bit dour, but he actually can offer some pretty interesting insights, actually.
Absolutely, yeah. I really liked him with Ben Edwards. Because that was what I grew up with. So we somehow, I don't know what. My dad was Scottish, that's all I'm saying. But we managed to get Eurosport for free on the cable by typing in a little weird number. So what I used to do was I'd be at school and then normally Friday quali would be on 1 till 2 because they were all the European races. So I'd come running home for lunch and then stuff myself with sarnies watching that and then go back to school with the VHS recorder on so that I could catch the last 20 minutes that I would have to miss because I was back in class. So that was kind of how I got into and stayed in F1 because BBC didn't used to cover those sessions, and that kind of got me into the Eurosport coverage. So I grew up just as much with that for a few years rather than the BBC side of stuff.
I wonder if that's actually quite common because I always think you and I are kind of a bit too nerdy actually about F1 because I must have been the only little boy in Britain who loved F1 but wanted to be a team manager more than he wanted to be a driver. That was my dream, really. I wanted to be a team principal. We're doing well, thanks, Beetlejuice. Did you have a good New Year, mate? I genuinely wanted to be a team principal. I loved like the politics and the technology and the engineering, and I loved watching that all be put together. And the driver was just another like piece in the puzzle for me. I was, I had a fondness for Damon Hill and Jean Alesi, but in general, I was more interested in like the political arrangements between sponsors and teams, and like how engines used to move up and down the grid, and I liked the negotiation element of the sport, where you're trying to think maybe a season or two ahead, and I like seeing new partners come in and flounder and fail. Yamaha leaps to mind.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I think I might have to stop very early in this Grand Prix. I'm also tanning it. I don't know why. I'm just putting quali laps in at the start of the race, and it's very stupid, really. I'm burning through my ERS.
Well, no, because the rain is starting to come now. I've got spots of rain at turn 1.
Oh yeah, I just got a graphics glitch that like did a bucket load of raindrops in one animation and then disappeared.
Same.
It's a good chance for me to charge my ERS a little bit. How are my tyres?
For a completely yellow front wing, I seem to still not be sliding everywhere, but I don't... I'm going to make them change it, because I don't... On the wet, I don't... that was stupid.
Well, before we try and bring it back onto some actual F1 happenings, we did want to talk, two of us, about merchandise, and I wanted to talk about mini champs, because I am building a collection of mini champs, and I've never been a collector in my life. I've always sort of had a kind of disdain actually for people who like collect stamps and coins, and I've maybe caricatured them in my mind. But I've come to realise just how deep my connection to F1 is, because a lot of my childhood memories, where I'm thinking about like the highs and lows of sport. I mean, I talk about it all the time. There are two sporting memories from my childhood that will stay with me till the day I die. World Cup 1998, Scotland drawing 1-1 with Brazil, and the 1997 Hungarian Grand Prix, where Damon Hill nearly won the Grand Prix in an Arrows. And so, I remember that so fondly that I have a model of Damon Hill's 1997 Arrows, right? And I have one, Ayrton Senna's '88 Lotus, because the qualifying laps he put in will stick with me forever. I didn't watch them live because I was 2, but I went back and watched them as I got a bit older. So all the models I've got are cars that hold a special significance for me. I don't just buy like random ones. It's quite funny actually. A friend came to visit recently and lifted up her son to take a look at the models, and she asked me which one's the winner. I was like, none of them. Literally none of them.
The correct answer.
But I love each and every one now. I've got a Jordan 191.
Ooh, nice.
And the problem I have is that, first of all, mini champs are super expensive. Because they were made in such limited quantities, that I'm having to like downgrade to cheaper models like Onyx and everything, because I want a Pacific. And if mini champs made Pacific Cup models, they didn't make many because I've never seen one. Same for 40. So I have a Pacific PR2 sat in the post office waiting for me to collect it this week.
Oh wow.
However,
Keith Wiggins would be proud.
Yeah, my complaint is merely that there's clearly a market for this stuff. They change hands for astronomical sums of money, and I know they're very difficult to make. But I just wish there was more of them and that they were priced more reasonably. I mean, Formula E manage it. They've got an arrangement with mini champs, and I got a 2019 Neo model for like €25, which seems fair. You can argue when you buy a lot of them, it builds up and becomes expensive, but that's like a third of what one normally costs. And I got one because I'm a shareholder in Neo, and I'm super happy about it because it made me way more money than I deserve to make off it. So I've gone from being a Virgin Racing fan to a Neo fan because I have to be now, because their fate and mine is intertwined. They very well may become my proxy pension.
Powered by
intermediates.
Ooh.
I don't think he registered it.
So Vettel and that who came in the previous lap all went on to dries.
Have you pitted?
Nope. I'm just getting past Stroll now with my broken front wing.
I've got a feeling that pitting Ben is going to cost me this Grand Prix.
I don't know, this could be one of those we're going to sit on greasy dampness for the entire race type things.
Beetlejuice says Villeneuve almost spinning it and gifting Damon the win. That is a memory. That is a memory. But yeah, didn't you want to talk about merchandise? Because normally merchandise comes up once or twice a year for us because we like to talk pricing or whatever, and it sounded like you had something to say on the matter.
Oh no, it was just to echo what you were saying basically around. So we hang out in some of the trusty Facebook groups that are out there for some of our lesser known F1 teams, and some of the stuff that's going on there, because they are the smaller teams, are ridiculously priced, and so it makes it really difficult to actually become collectors of things. Not oh what? Sorry, I just got the worst penalty. So Stroll literally smacked me by driving across the track. It pushed me off the track, and then I get a 3-second penalty for cutting, but I've not really cut. And it was only because Stroll smacked me, so I've just smacked him off the circuit like a twat. Anyway.
I'm being held up by Kubica, it's fine.
He smashed me off the track at turn 2.
Beetlejuice says, mini champs have released Force India strollers. Have I got one of those yet? No, I haven't, but I nearly did get a Pink Panther. I've been looking.
Ooh.
And actually, if you're in the market, I was saying to Simon before we went live, the Alfa Romeo testing livery with the black with red love hearts, that's being released very, very soon. And I'll be honest, I want it. I want it. And I want a George Russell Williams and a Lando Norris McLaren. But I just don't have that kind of money right now.
Random question. I appreciate you won't probably know the answer, but did they or would they ever do the camo Red Bull?
They did.
Because I find it really interesting that they do test liveries.
The blue one, the blue camo style Red Bull.
Yeah.
That you can find. Quite a few places seem to have that.
Nice.
The black and white camo bull, I've seen one, so they definitely exist. But there's quite a few. When the testing livery's been particularly memorable, mini champs do actually seem to make them, which is a very, very good thing. You can also get a retro orange McLaren, like a early 2000s McLaren in papaya testing livery.
Oh, nice.
Which is very cool. And usually, if the testing livery is not like from the last 10 years, they're actually cheaper than the race car models. You can also get a Red Bull snow test car, complete with tyre chains.
Oh, wow. That is niche.
So they do put in the effort. God love them.
So Jeff's just said to me that the rain will clear up in 10 minutes, so I don't think we're going to go to Inters.
That's all right. Now I'm just stuck behind all the people who started on mediums.
Hi.
Oh yeah, you're ahead of me, aren't you? I can see you.
When you get to me, I'll just let you through because my front wing is balked and it's making me drive like a twat.
I don't need any such help. I don't need driver aids to drive like a wanker. I'm managing just fine. Oh well. Well, to round things out, if you are in the market for merchandise, anybody watching, Williams are still having a clearance sale. Their kit I actually like very much, and my purchase of the season has been a Toro Rosso technical t-shirt with front zipper. That's incredibly comfortable, very nicely fitted, and the McLaren polo shirt. The McLaren polo shirt is so well designed and kind of understated in its branding that you can actually wear it out like a normal person, and it's very, very nice. So all of those are on clearance at the moment because the new merchandise is coming into the shops gradually. Definitely worth picking up, and the price won't get any better. Moving back onto real F1 news, the big story that neither of us has mentioned thus far, Lawrence Stroll has taken a $200 million shareholding in Aston Martin.
Ooh.
Which gives credence to the rumour that was circulating at the end of the season that Aston Martin were going to switch allegiance to Force India Badger Stroll Eyebrows and rebrand the team as Aston Martin Racing. Which would be very cool because Racing Point is a horrible name and I want a team with the British Racing Green livery.
Yeah, that Racing Point, no one has dealt with that, and I can see what the marketing team were hoping to do, but no.
No.
So,
and it doesn't help that because the car's pink, the logo looks like a nipple.
Yes. Now that you've said it, yes.
Beetlejuice thinks we're reading too much into the Stroll deal, however. He's clarified,
so.
But I haven't yet gone to a straight part of the track where I can read his insights. To be honest, I was sceptical about it, but the more I think about it now, the more it makes sense, because, I mean, Racing Point's essentially a vanity project for his son. And the Aston Martin branding contains a lot of prestige. And if you're not asking Aston Martin to build an engine, which is basically what Red Bull were trying to get them to do, and, at the moment they have to co-brand the car with Honda, which, probably isn't an ideal scenario. I could see it happening. Not this season, but I could definitely see it happening. I completely shagged that corner.
I feel like there is a potential 2021 tie-up, because there's so much where I just feel like 2021 new F1, new start, new. Why not do some new brand deals at the same time? That to me would also be if Alfa Romeo want to bow out, it would be then. If Toto and Co are going to start to pull away from Mercedes and that's going to become its own little thing as well, then that would be interesting to kind of happen then. Brave new world. Have you also seen the talking of building engines and stuff like that, have you seen the name has now escaped me of who actually said it, but he was saying about how engines could be two-stroke.
Oh, I haven't seen that, and I don't like it. Makes me unhappy.
I can hear in the tone of your voice.
You only bring me bad news, Simon.
Sorry.
I mean, what I have seen is more and more people in the press suggesting that Formula One is or needs to or is going to go down the Formula E route. And every time I read that, I think, well, it's a bit late for that.
Yep.
Because
Completely
all
agree.
the big players are already in Formula E. Everyone who is going to build an all-electric powertrain, with the exception of Ferrari, who there was no space left for them, they're already in Formula E. Formula E is already a runaway success. It's way more accessible to the fans. The races all sell out. Yeah, like, it's too late for that. They're going to have to either hydrogen fuel sell it or, I don't know, shrink into oblivion. It's too little too late to be talking in those terms. Don't cut me off, Albon, you dirty, dirty, dirty driver, you. I had to start getting past some of these guys because I was losing a lot of time in traffic. Yeah, I mean, 2021, I was super excited about it. Now I'm not so sure because we've actually got a really close field that I'm hoping tightens up even further, and the formula change puts that at risk. And I don't see what's to be gained by the formula change, because every time they say it's going to produce better racing, it usually doesn't. And it's not attracted any new powertrain suppliers, which was arguably the cornerstone reason why they changed the formula so soon, because the current participants didn't want to change it because these power units were incredibly expensive to manufacture and they're only just starting to get some form of return on investment on them. Yeah, I'm kind of bamboozled, and F1's kind of very relaxed attitude to the lack of new teams and the lack of new engine suppliers is worrying me. I mean, Ross Brawn occasionally makes some kind of throwaway comment about, yes, we really must do something about that, but then they never do. I'm really not sure what to expect from 2021, but I'm actually not super excited by it. I saw you move to the side there very kindly to let me through, but then I broke traction and skidded off.
That's okay.
Are those guys pitting for Inters?
Nope, they were dries.
Now it's just invited me to come in. But it's telling me to come in for softs.
Bit early.
Not now.
Oh.
Later.
Yeah, no, this is as heavy as the rain's going to be. It's going to chill, I think.
I hope so, because it's starting to get a bit slippery and I'm concerned that I'm not on a different tyre. In an ironic twist of fate, Nico Hülkenberg, who I'd already forgotten existed, is now leading the race. Go, go, Renault Rangers. What's your thinking on them going forward? Because they've been blowing a lot of smoke up Daniel Ricciardo's arse in the press. I don't know if you saw.
I don't know with Renault. They are, for me, they have become a bit of the enigma that I don't really I can't place where they're going to be and what they're going to do, and whether or not they're actually going to step forward or not. Whereas I can kind of peg everyone else, and Renault is either going to just be utterly meh or fall back, but I can't see them going forward until 2021. Again, this is the caveat of everything, is are they just working towards 2021 and have given up 2020 already? Is that wise? Can they afford to? Will the board then go, well, bye-bye, everyone?
I think the board might do that anyway.
Are you pitting?
No.
No. Okay, I am.
Like, honestly, I could see them pulling out. I'm not at all confident they're going to be on the grid in 2021. They're subject to huge cost-cutting exercises. Their CEO was supposed to go to prison, but smuggled himself out of the country and is now living in Lebanon. 10 out of 10, good effort there. Yeah, imagine that, escaping prison with all that money and all the hummus you could eat. He's living the dream, that boy.
This is true.
I'm kind of sort of... Because also they're in Formula E with Nissan. So they're running 2 top-flight open-wheel programs on top of all the other stuff they do. Carlos Ghostin, yeah, exactly. He's ghost like Swayze. Something about my car feels wrong. It was feeling so good before, and now it's all wrong. And Hamilton's catching me. That wasn't happening before. Don't like it.
Make it stop. That, my DRS broke. Voodoo.
Commentator's curse.
I am plumb last. Wait a minute.
That means the field must be very close together because you pitted from 3rd.
Yep.
I don't know if my eyes are deceiving me, but it looks very much to me like there's a Williams in the top 10.
That wouldn't surprise me.
I'm so bad in conditions like this in this version of the game that Hamilton is probably going to get past me. Because whenever I'm in a fast corner and put power down, the car feels like it's going to snap away from me.
Yep.
Oh no, he's pitting. Sweet.
Yeah, because he was on softs and you're mediums, so you're going to go much further.
I'm pitting lap 21 to softs, which wasn't initially the strategy. I was supposed to go soft, medium, medium, but now I'm going soft, medium, soft because I'm a boss and my tyre wear has been excellent. Why is it always that I'm good at circuits I hate? Have you noticed that? Like Azerbaijan, fast like grease lightning. France, universally agreed to be the worst track on the calendar to drive. Nail it every time.
Oh, this car. Indeed, indeed. And actually, talking of tracks that we might hate, the other piece of news, and really the only bit of news that I have to bring to the table, is apparently Saudi Arabia have paid $50 million to host a Grand Prix in 2021. And I wonder, A, where the hell that will actually take place on, B,
I mean, isn't the Formula E track just essentially like another marina circuit?
Yeah, yeah.
Full of men in dresses and weird hats.
Yeah. Endearing yourself to the fans there. But yeah, it's an interesting one because it's not like in a city specifically. It looks like it's in the middle of a car park, but that's just because desert is desert, I guess. So it might actually be somewhere, but it doesn't look like it apart from... Well, it just looks deserty to me. But, yeah, I don't really know what they would do as a purpose-built thing. And if they're going to play around with, let's do a Formula E race, I just think that's the wrong way for Formula 1 to go. That we don't need another Valencia-style...
No, that's about the last thing we fucking need. But also, like, and again, I hate when politics enters sport, but aside from Formula E, usually when a sport is hosted in Saudi Arabia, it causes some kind of problem for the organising body, and I don't think 50 million is money that they desperately need.
Yeah, because there's always the hashtag boycott Saudi Prix.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I have a problem with Saudi Arabia. Their record on human rights is really, really bad, and I'd rather not be hosting sporting events there until they clean up their act. That said, as a matter of principle, I don't believe politics has a place in sport, so I'm not going to rant and rave about it. It's just sort of a subjective personal preference that I'd prefer to see racing happen in a country that's less suppressive and on a better circuit, because I don't like the Saudi circuit at all, assuming it's held at the same one. Thank you very much for your dating advice there, Beetlejuice. It's an interesting theory. Maybe we can find out.
I'm so intrigued right now.
Well, I pointed out that I do well on circuits I dislike.
Oh, shit.
He suggested that it might be good to romantically pair with people I dislike. It's a bit late for me on that regard, because I'm already well and truly tied up. But maybe there's other people that could help in the world of dating. Maybe that's the answer everyone's looking for. A lot of people are unhappy. A lot of people entering their late 30s unmarried, and maybe that's what they're missing. Your dating advice: just find someone you think is a twat and tolerate each other, and maybe it works.
Sounds like marriage.
Well, Red Bull and Renault managed to make it work for a few years.
That is true.
And won several world championships together.
God, could you imagine Cyril Irritable and Christian Horner in some kind of reality TV trapped on Love Island together or something?
A Formula One gay sauna.
Yeah.
Reality TV show with those two. I'm still in favour of the Playboys of F1 reality show in a flat in Monaco. DC, Eddie Irvine, Bernie, Flavio Briatore, Eddie Jordan, Alexander Wurz, Giancarlo Fisichella, reanimated James Hunt. Get those boys in there and see what happens.
Happy birthday, Fisichella, by the way.
What is it, 64 today?
Something like that. He's posing in his Ferrari outfit, but the face looks slightly more soprano menacing compared to what it did beforehand.
We shouldn't be too harsh. We might end up sleeping with the fishes.
That is true.
We're channeling Murray Walker today.
That is true.
The little Italian with his craggy face.
God.
No, I will not let an opportunity pass to evangelise about Giancarlo Fisichella. I so wanted him to do well and win a championship, but it just never came to be. The end of his career at Force India, and then that dream move to Ferrari that just didn't quite work out. God, I would have loved that to be a fairy tale ending to his career.
Yeah.
But hey ho, we don't always get what we want. Other news: some of the car release dates have been announced. Now, Ferrari were the first to the table. McLaren have pulled a very lame publicity stunt by pretending that Lando Norris gave it away when he shouldn't have done, even though he was streaming on their official channel. So it's obvious that that's what he was supposed to do. But still,
that was very weird. I saw that video. I was confused.
I really hope they don't ruin Lando Norris, because I think they've cottoned on that he and Carlos Sainz are actually PR gold, but it only works when it's kind of natural, and it happens because it's stuff like Carlos calling him up and saying, "Come over to my house, I'll buy you a pizza if you set up my sim racing wheel." Right? That's genuine and a little bit funny. But when it's forced or orchestrated, then it's just going to lose all its benefit.
Yep.
I tell you what we haven't discussed. I can't believe this. New contracts. New contracts have been signed. Charles Leclerc signed to Ferrari until, and I'm sure Beetlejuice can correct me if I'm wrong, till either 2024 or 2025.
Oh Oh, crap.
Like a super long contract.
I thought it was Verstappen till 2024.
No, Verstappen has also re-signed with Red Bull, which I actually think is quite an astute move on his part because that looks like the right team for him.
Agreed. Okay. I missed the Leclerc one. Great.
Yeah, a very long-term contract for Leclerc, so that's a real statement of intent from Ferrari. One that I wholly support, although I am tantalised by the idea of Leclerc in a different car, if Ferrari can't produce something exciting.
Yeah, I don't want this to become Jean Alesi too, but it would be... That's nice to see the continuity and just everything working nicely, so yay.
Yeah, but the interesting thing that comes out of that is it puts Mercedes in a very precarious position.
Yeah, because who's the big daddies now?
Well, yeah, because they don't have a young protege signed up, and they were always hoping, I think, to get hold of Verstappen.
Yep.
And now that door seems to be fairly firmly closed in their chops. I'm curious to see if they maybe airlift Ocon out of Renault early, or if they commit to George Russell before arguably he's ready. Because Bottas is saying, well, I'm going to work really hard this year to make a renewal a no-brainer for them. But even if Bottas delivers, right?
3.0.
Let's be completely honest about this. Even if Bottas, challenges for the championship right up to the end of the season, it's not a no-brainer because they're going to be looking at their watch and thinking, how much Lewis do we have left?
Yep.
So there's always going to be a question about who's going to be the next big hitter because, Bottas has his moments, but even if he came close to winning the championship or even won it, I don't think I'd have confidence in him repeating the performance. And now he's in the middle of a tricky divorce, and his career's up for debate. I'm not totally sold that he's going to pull out a stellar performance this year. And I can sort of see him wandering off the horse at the end of the year in ignominy.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, what would you do if you were Toto Wolff? I mean, apart from getting elocution lessons.
I would airlift.
I mean, because not to preempt you there, but I mean, Ocon for a lot of people seems like the obvious choice. But
I was going to go Russell.
But if he comes into Renault this year and has a bad season, then you're already querying yourself, right? And Russell, he's impressed me at Williams, but he hasn't been given the tools to really show what he's capable of, and it still seems like a very high risk move for me. But please,
absolutely,
please continue. Is that your preferred option? You would take Russell?
My preferred option is to go with Russell. But it would be on the caveat of you've got to blow the doors off Latifi this year. In the same way that it is a difficult one because I would also still be looking. I'd still have my eyes very much on Ocon to make sure that he is benching Ricciardo where possible, because otherwise, then my driving in this Grand Prix is horrific. Sorry. That's 9 seconds of warnings I've now added on to me. I'm just cutting everywhere.
I'm pitting, but I think I could have made my tyres last, and I may end up regretting this. This could be another win I throw away. But the strategy computer says I need to stop.
I think you'll be all right,
I'm not going to come out in the lead, but
there was a McLaren holding loads and loads of people up because I can kind of see the tail of the tail in the background, and I've got Verstappen ahead of me and Bottas is behind me, and I'm shit.
I've come out ahead of that McLaren train, which I needed to do.
Great.
It's put me on scrubbed softs from qualifying.
Oh.
I thought when it suggested put on softs, I don't have any fresh softs left, and it didn't give me the scrub soft symbol. So I feel like I've been diddled. I'm going to call Anne Robinson on Watchdog.
That's awesome.
Have you been promised tyres that were clean and fresh and been given scrubbed ones? Call Tyres for You.
You are the scrubbiest link. Goodbye.
Yeah, exactly.
I would... I would say whichever... I'd almost tell Ocon and Russell that one seat will be up for grabs for 2021. Whichever one outperforms their teammate best wins. And if neither do, Bottas stays.
Yeah, I mean, that's still only a short-term solution, surely.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, it's funny how they've cut themselves trousers down, really. And as much sympathy as I have for Bottas, I'm starting to think that really they made a mistake by allowing Ocon to fall out of the sport. Because they're now the one that doesn't have a young prospect tied up. And it's sort of like you're picking the asthmatic kids now for your team.
Aww.
I mean, not that, I don't rate Ocon. It's just he seems.
He needs to make sure that he doesn't end up becoming needy greedy and making overdriving. He needs to come in with confidence and show that he was the class act that we would like to think that he can be, and that he should never have been off the grid. But if he comes back and it's all a bit leery and he starts smashing into people, and the thing that will be really telling for me is if he manages to drive a wedge between himself and Danny Rick, then that's two teammates who he can't work with, and then is the problem Ocon?
Well, we have to hope as well for a punch-up between him and Verstappen.
Oh yeah, plus.
Ricardo and Leclerc having a fight in front of me. I'm really hoping if I crank up my power unit, I can get past both of them. Oh, that's probably going to be an illegal overtake. God damn it. I was trying so hard. I want this win. I need it. I need the win. Beetlejuice suggests they could reanimate the corpse of Pascal Wehrlein and his stupid hair.
What's wrong with his hair?
Oh, come on, like his pretentious goatee and his curly mop. It was... Yeah, no. But he's got the male equivalent of resting bitch face, hasn't he? He just can't not look arrogant. He always looks like he rubs himself in oil and is just, his own biggest fan.
Just covered in PDSFVA.
Yeah. Okay, double overtakes. Now it's me and Hamilton to the finish.
Nice.
Beetlejuice is channeling Murray Walker himself there. I don't know. I don't see Wehrlein's prospects for coming back all that high. There's a lot of people who still rate him. Again, I see on the F1 circles in Twitter, his name comes up a lot as people saying, "Oh, bring him back, give him another chance." But
he's quite happy in FE though, isn't he?
Yeah, and also he was pretty much put in his place by Marcus Ericsson. The giant killer, the man who has killed more careers than I think any other recent F1 driver. By just being good enough. Can we bring back Rio Haryanto trending? We were trying that years ago, and we never got any success. That and hashtag bring back Max Chilton.
Oh, Maxi Bomb. Is Max in Indy again this year, I think?
He's fallen completely off my radar. It would make sense for him to be at Carlin. Who got the McLaren Indy seats in the end?
So I don't know. Because they're aligning Alonso with Andretti, and apparently Alonso has said that he would be considering coming back to F1 in 3 years' time. Please no.
In 2 years' time or 3?
3, I think it was. It was basically, now's not the time for me to come back. I need to evaluate, but I feel like I am an F1 driver and I should be back in F1 and all of this stuff. It felt like
I don't think he'll be allowed back.
People. I don't think he will either. I know Liberty Media seem to be quite desperate that he is, but I'd rather he didn't.
No, I mean, no comeback's ever worked. Mansell arguably made it work a little bit, but then was too fat for the McLaren. And then
Prost on a sabbatical, and that was it, really.
Yeah, pretty much. The sport moves on, and particularly if he comes back after a formula change.
Yep.
Yeah, no. The other thing is, why would any team give him a chance now? He's kind of, as we said in the last episode before the new year, the well's kind of been poisoned a little bit on Alonso, given that he's been the common factor in a lot of failed initiatives now.
Yeah.
And I don't know why any... because when he says, I'll give it a few years and come back, that really translates to, I want to wait and see who's going to have the dominant car.
Yes.
And then try and boot their door down and take a seat. I'm not saying it's impossible. I could see it happening if enough money was flowing around, but it shouldn't happen. And if any of the top teams have any sense, then they'll continue developing the likes of Verstappen, Leclerc, and finding the guys who come after them, because an F1 driver's career is very, very short. What is it, an average of 5 years? When you take the guys who are in for one season and the guys who are in for sort of 10 to 12. I believe the average is something like 4 to 5 seasons. Very, very few in the length of the sport actually get more than that. You always need to be looking at the next big thing. The last thing you need to be doing is looking at yesterday.
And I feel like I feel like we've kind of gotten over Alonso because he was MIA at the front for so many years that he'd become like the meme section, which was good fun, but you wasn't talking about him as a front of a race, and it was all a bit sad. Now I'm not interested in him being back. I feel like it's only Alonso and Liberty Media who are still trying to peddle this, and actually we have moved on because we have Verstappen, we have Leclerc, we have the fall of Vettel, we have Hamilton clearing up all-time records, if that's your thing, which for a large amount of people is, this is me saying goodbye.
No! What happened?
Binned it at the fast right.
Oh, I've nearly done it a few times. Was it the rain that you were accelerating and the car just snapped?
Yeah, I was too aggressive. But I've driven like an absolute cock all the way through.
You said that in a way that was like, yeah, that sounds better than what actually happened. Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah. I'd made it up to 10th, but I had too many time penalties, so I wouldn't have scored. So this is very much down to you on your last lap of room, mate.
Oh, don't curse me.
Ooh, Danny Rick's in 4th. What?
Yeah, he was fighting with Leclerc as well, very very admirably when I got past them.
Clearly they've given Albon Gasly's AI in this event, because he's only just got into 10th.
But speaking of Alonso still, I mean, given the situation at McLaren now as well, in his first year's absence, I think even Zach Brown would need a Viagra to get going again. Because that was the element of McLaren that always worried me, that Zach Brown seemed to be in love with Fernando Alonso. Yeah. And I thought, oh God, he'll bring him back. If the car gets good and Alonso suggests it, he'll bring him back. He will. But actually, I'm pleased to say I think I've been proven incorrect in that assumption, because he's taken a step back from being like the team principal, right? He's just the CEO now of McLaren Racing, and it's Andreas Seidel who makes the decisions.
Yeah.
Which also I'm glad about, because he's a team principal that I have an enormous amount of respect for.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, did I ever need this win.
Well done, mate. Good run.
I was out of fuel when I crossed the line. That was I thought
thought you were showboating.
No. I ran out of fuel. Oh, what a dick.
That would have been failcasting elite.
Well, it's like that time I did a race in a Tyrrell with that mod, and then ran out of fuel and went from like third to last.
Those are the moments we live for on this podcast.
Yeah. Oh, happy days. I mean, that still only puts me at like half the points of you, but you know, I'll take it.
Yeah.
But it also means all my points this season have been scored through wins, I think. Actually, no, I got 2 points somewhere. Whoop whoop, that's the sound of the police.
Okay. Just the 9 seconds of... I drove like a twat. What was Bottas doing? I noticed he was behind me when he came out the pits. I don't think many of the 2 stoppers got it right, but you did.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. I was really worried that it wasn't going to work, but it did, and I'm so glad that it did. And you were right in your prediction that you would no longer be top of the pile. I have moved up to P6 in the drivers' rankings. Kaboom!
Nice.
And we're still top of the pile in the constructors. For the first time ever, we may win a constructors' championship in this playthrough if I don't jinx it. Thank you very much to you, Beetlejuice in particular, and to Manor House, and to anyone else who's been joining us, watching, having a bit of an old natter. We're both very, very happy to be back in the new decade.
We've had 7 or 8 all the way through, actually. It's been quite good.
Smashing. I hope everyone has an amazing end to the week, and we will see you again in 2 weeks.
We will indeed. Take care, everyone, and we'll catch you soon. Bye.
Tiddly byes.